And we're live for our very first episode of Hot Take Express. I'm your host, Kent Chamberlain, and let's get right into it. Because it is the very first episode, I've got to explain some things. Why am I doing this? First off, so let's talk about patriotic socialism and the patriotic socialist streamers out there. They've been pretty solid for the most part, and I've been content to let them do their thing. YouTube isn't really my natural medium, and I've been happier writing. But, as they say, out of the movement into the masses, and the masses are here on video sites, like YouTube. So, if I want my message to get out there, and I do, that's where I gotta go. Furthermore, I can't just leave it to my allies to do this correctly. Or at least in a way that I fully endorse and agree with. There are three streamers that, in particular, in the patriotic socialist movement, that I've followed and upheld and uphold, but my divergences with them have reached a point where, like, I feel a need to get my own line out there. Yeah, like, so basically it just boils down to, if you want something done right, you gotta do it yourself. Just real quickly, and again, I totally uphold these people, I just have some criticisms. Haas is, well, he's kind of postmodernist, kind of comes with his philosophical territory, but most importantly to my theorizing, he upholds Pol Pot, and I don't. But what really drove me to do this is I just got done watching a video of CPI members chanting "land back," and my stomach churned to the point where I was like, because this project had been on my radar, something I'd been wanting to do for a while, but after watching that video, I was like, no, I have to get my own line out there. There has to be some pushback against some of these errors cropping up. And I love the CPI. There are many people, many comrades doing wonderful work in the CPI. Caleb is foremost among them. Charlotte Forrester comes to mind. Lily Goldklang. Lots of others. But, you know, I gotta point out my disagreements, and I am very vehemently opposed to the whole land back scheme, and so I just can't get behind what I saw there. But now, like, I gotta get into some more of the beef, because, and I think, yeah, some of this is actual beef. Not with CPI as such, although I am kind of wondering why they gave a platform to Dust James. Dust James has been acting real arrogant, like, he's one of those guys, I mean, like, he's not a shitlib, but he argues like a shitlib. Like, he will just, like, laugh react at anything he disagrees with, and, like, that's sufficient explanation. You don't need to explain any further, you just need to laugh at them, and maybe if they feel, you know, belittled enough, then they'll come to your view, and that's not how argumentation works, that's not how human nature works. It's a shitlib conceit that you don't actually have to explain things, you just have to mock people, and that's good enough. Arrogance is, you know, whoever displays the most arrogance wins the argument, and, but that's not even my real beef with Dust. It's just, like, kind of shows what kind of a person he is, but, he started the beef with Haas, and like I said, I have issues with Haas, I mean, well, criticisms of Haas, but fundamentally, he is a very popular anti-imperialist doing very unpopular anti-imperialist work. And he has done more to fight imperialism than most of us. More than me, certainly. Like, and so, just, there was this whole part of patriotic socialism that felt that all of a sudden that, like, attacking other patriotic socialists was the way to go about things. And, like, so Dust really laid into Haas, part of this whole arrogant mentality he's got. And I just saw that as wrecker stuff, and so I've been skeptical of Haas ever since. And you know, like, or no, I'm sorry, I'm not skeptical of Haas, skeptical of Dust. And so when I see, yeah, like I just don't understand working with wreckers, I guess, because they're just gonna wreck you in the end. They're and there were people like Dust was in with that whole crowd of people like Yankee Tanky. They that were like trying to tear up an Arturo Hole is another. I don't know if he streams or anything, but just tearing apart this good kid named Keaton Mansfield. He was involved with the CPI. They parted ways. I'm not privy to all that, but Keaton has also been doing anti-imperialist work. He's been appearing on various TV programs and didn't deserve the attacks he garnered from people that are supposed to be his comrades. Anyway, so I just and the other thing about Dust, and this isn't just a criticism I have with Dust, but this might also be part of why the CPI wanted him there when the Uhuru people were. He upholds the land backroom light position that Lenin himself advocated. And, I mean, I am a communist. I uphold Lenin. But once in a while, and Lenin claimed a rare L. Like, Lenin was wrong sometimes, and the whole land backroom position was not really theory that was well understood. At the time, history hadn't explored it with natural experiments yet. We hadn't really seen what the synthetic left was, or how it could be used against us. So yeah, Lenin took the L, but nobody's perfect, and I still envy that guy's win-loss record, and I think we all would. But yeah, Lenin was wrong about this, because what happened with his land backroom light position of country, because I forgot to mention, this is what I'm talking about here. Lenin felt that just keeping a united Russia together wasn't sufficient. That the Soviet Union couldn't just be a centralized state like that. That needed separate national autonomous areas, the separate national republics for the different nations of the Soviet Union that were of a certain size, and that these national republics should have the right to secede. And that's what broke apart the Soviet Union, but also that's the root of all of this trouble with Ukraine. And that is the trouble with me relying on this little thing for lighting, is that the flashlight turns off every 30 minutes. But you know what? We're just going to embrace the DIY-ness of this video. I'm working with what I got to put the theory out there. Let's jam. But anyway, so you got this land backroom light position that Lenin held. I don't think that Ukraine and Belarus and Kazakhstan and ultimately Russia should have been able to secede from the Soviet Union. I don't think Lithuania, Estonia, any of them. And having done that, I don't think that these nations' separate existence as nations, all claiming sovereignty in a place where there just isn't room for all of that sovereignty to coexist on an unadulterated form. It was a big theoretical error, and my issue with Dust James and the rest of the CPI continuing this idea is that, in relation to America, is that, okay, you say that black people or Chicano people, which is just a demonstration of how old this theory is, that they have the right to create their own nations out of the United States. First off, if we do not all hang together, we will all surely hang separately. Dividing the United States has always been in Mug's game, and I fundamentally don't support it. It is not only anti-patriotic, if you're an American, it works against the interests of American communists, to be decentralizing when we should be centralizing democracy. Unions are just a fundamentally communist thing, and breaking them apart isn't really a good idea unless it's like a truly colonial situation, like say Vietnam was in during French rule, or something like the Chinese suffered through. Then sure, breaking the political union is the communist thing to do, but that's just a form of it. But in those cases, that's a form of autocracy. We're talking about a democratic union here in the United States, and a democratic union should not be broken asunder for the purposes of communism. It doesn't serve communist interests to do that. Let's see. So I mean, Caleb upholds this too, but Caleb has the decency of admitting that it sounds like segregation, and then just trying to change the topic real quick. But then he went ahead and I get why he invited the Uhuru people to Chicago. Is they had just suffered a raid, and that was bad. But then thing is, during that video, the speaker was saying that you want to raid someone, raid Trump, and then that happened not long after that. They said that is Trump got raided in Mar-a-Lago. I don't see a whole lot of support, critical or otherwise, from patsocs even over that. A lot more from Haas, a lot more from Jackson. I don't see the CPI really stepping up though. And Trump wants to destroy the deep state, and he's kind of got a plan to do so if he's reelected, and that goes along with what I'm trying to do. So, I guess if you can have solidarity for the Uhuros because they're anti-imperialists, you really ought to be able to have solidarity with Trump for the same reason. Because, I mean, even if he's doing it for the silliest of reasons, gutting the CIA is still gutting the CIA. And, I just have to wonder at the logic of supporting organizations that support FBI psyops like Landback. But if you're going to do that just on the basis that they're an anti-imperialist, then you need to be consistent and support Trump when he's being anti-imperialist. And there's nothing more anti-imperialist than destroying the CIA. That's just facts. But yeah, so that's my problems with Dust. That's my problems with the CPI. But let's get into my problems with Haas. And there are a lot more problems with Haas. If I just to list them, but I feel like each one of them is fundamentally smaller. I'll add up all these problems with Haas, and it still doesn't equal the problem that having Landback ruse in your org have. It's not as bad as that. It's not as bad as being arrogant like Dust James. But yeah, Haas, I come from a history and geography background. Haas comes from a philosophy background, and there's nothing wrong with that. Different strokes for different folks. Both our studies led us to the moral science of Marxism-Lincolnism, so that's based. But there are some approaches in philosophy that I just do not cotton to. Postmodernism is one of them. I could make a video about this. I could get into real detail, but suffice it to say that you see this idea of subjective truth coming around over and over again, but always at periods when capitalism is in crisis and starting to decay towards fascism. Where that is imminent. That's where you see. And it's not that I don't want to say that one necessarily causes the other, because they both it's a self-reinforcing loop, and as one happens and it causes sort of cascade effect, and the other causes the other, like I said, self-reinforcing loop. can't always describe these things well, but if you don't believe in something as fundamental as objective truth, then prove the Holocaust was bad. You can't. I mean, you need objective truth to say things are good or bad. Otherwise, well, that's just your truth. That's just your idea of good. That's just your idea of bad. No. These things really exist. They have an existence in material reality. It's a lot more complicated than that. I could do a video about my opinions on quantum mechanics and the multiverse, and I probably will eventually, but suffice it to say, the universe is one that is based on an objective truth. The multiverse, even. Because even if the multiverse exists, and I think it does, you can still step outside that and say that this thing is objectively true, this thing is objectively not true. Even if, like, the universes are different and what people are seeing is different, there's still an objective multiverse in which all of these things are true or not true, right? And so objective truth exists. And postmodernism is the latest attempt to deny that. And it's just ideological poison for Marxism. And because it's not just that, but it's postmodernism is people like using all these highfalutin theoretical terms. It's like all the middle class academics got together and were like, you know, and they invented a secret decoder ring that they call postmodernism or POMO. And if you have this secret decoder ring, you get to be in this POMO. You get to admittance into the special POMO treehouse, you know, where you guys can be POMO together and talk about deconstructing things and like use all these big $10 words that the, you know, dumb poors don't understand, and you know, and because at its heart, postmodernism is just like, you know, professors trying to square the contradictions of their field, philosophical professors especially, but like, you know, you have to be respected as a professor, you have to be radical, but to get tenure and an endowed chair and like to keep professing, you can't be that radical. So how you square this circle, how you manage this contradiction, is you have this postmodernist jargon that you speak in. It sure sounds radical. You're saying nothing, but the dumb poors can't figure that out, right? So, like, anything rooted in postmodernism, I just distrust. Like Lacan, whatever, Derrida. I wipe my ass with Derrida, to use a Haasism. Like, I just have no time for any of that. Like, they can all eat my ass like groceries. And the thing is, the postmodernism doesn't really creep into Haas's stuff too much, but it did creep into his idea about patriotic socialism itself, the term. Funny thing is, I coined the term on accident, but hey, you know, take credit where you can, I guess. I started a group on Facebook called the Radical Republicans, and the Radical Republicans, it was like trying to describe my ideology to conservatives that I wanted to join this thing, and I described us as patriotic Republican socialists. I chose the word Republican socialist because, like, you know, Bernie was in the news like a democratic socialist, so I was like, well, okay, so just give them the idea that it's kind of like Bernie, but not really. It's a different version of it, you know, more attuned to Republicans, but also we're not like the Lambackaroos. And because I feel like that's what communism in America is just known for. If you're a communist in America, people think you think that. And so I was like, no, we're patriots. We love America. You know, we love this country. And so I chose that phrasing to describe us, but I wasn't intending for that to catch on. I coined the term Marxism-Lincolnism after asking for ideas for this new sort of like communist spinoff. One of the other ideas I got was classical libertarianism, which is just based as a term, but unfortunately, it's kind of references anarchism more than ML. So I ran with this, and I'm happier with this, or with what I ended up choosing, Marxism-Lincolnism. But patriotic socialism is a good enough term, and but yeah, that group description, because that group came out after Bernie lost the second time in the Democratic primaries, and I was like, all right, so now that you guys have all, now that Bernie's failed twice, maybe you'll listen to what I have to say, and maybe we should try to take over the GOP. So that's when I released that, and then a Facebook or a left book group called Cursed Liberal Opinions took a screenshot of the group description where I was talking about patriotic Republican socialists, and they were like memeing it to hell and back. And long before Haas denied his first dinosaur and launched a comet into organized paleontology, I understood how the memes work of attention economy, and so I leaned into it, and I leaned into this bad press, and it was like, because it was a very popular page, I'm sure it still is, but like very very common, or very widespread. Like I got messages from a bunch of people telling me that I made Cursed Liberal Opinions is like butt of their joke, and so I went over there and I was like, decided, okay, I'm gonna start an argument. And so I was like, well, hi there, Mr. Liberal Opinions, and I'm the guy from the meme, in the thread that they started with, the screenshot, and so I went back and forth with him for a while, and finally it was like, he was asking me to like prove something that was going to be like a very long-winded thing to prove, and I was like, I'll do it if you take off the laugh reacts, because this effort is worth it for fellow comrade, but this effort isn't worth it for a shitlib. And he wouldn't. He was like, well, just go talk to the PSL then. So okay, all right, that makes sense. He's this page is with a party of socialite libations. Okay, so that explains the shitlibbery. But yeah, so I let the shitlibs make fun of me, because when they do that, what's happening is that they're ignoring the workers like they always do. So they'll just like laugh at this dumb thing that this dumb poor on the internet thinks, and then all the dumb poors around them are gonna be listening to what I think and being mocked, and they're like, wait a minute, I think that. And then so they're gonna suddenly, without me having to do anything but have said the first thing initially, they're gonna be like, that guy is on my side, and these guys actually think I am a jackass or a Nazi or a patsy or whatever they're calling us. So I feel like that's how patriotic socialism got big. Because when this dropped, I mean, I don't think Jackson was doing his thing yet. Maybe Haas had just started. I know Caleb had been doing this stuff for a while, but like, a lot of people a lot of the messages of support and agreement and solidarity I've gotten over the years have been from people that just saying like, I heard about you from that, or I heard about you from, or some other thing, some other argument I had and took screenshots of, or someone else took screenshots of, and, they're taking screenshots to dunk on me and embarrass me, but it backfires because I'm just spouting what the workers think and, like, just making friends and, winning influence. Yeah, anyway, so I am kind of responsible for that term, but that's not why I think abandoning it like Haas did was cringe. If it was just about me, like, whatever, but like, no. it's not that he abandoned the term, it's that why he abandoned the term. He abandoned the term because the likes of Yankee Tanky and Dust James use the term. And I get the idea of wanting to disassociate yourself from that, right? But like, Mecha Tanky, the term, and yeah, that term is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I get where he's going with it, the allusions he's making, all of that. That's fine. But like, just letting someone drive you off your turf is someone, especially someone like Dust or Yankee Tanky, who's just a joke. First off, that's not based at all. That's kind of cringe when you're like not standing your ground. But it's also not going to work because wreckers and the mentally ill are always going to follow you. And this happened immediately. Like, there was a stream about like a month ago, Haas did, where, Yankee Tanky called himself Mecha Tanky and, like, pretended to not be himself and posed as, like, the cringiest call-in guest that Haas has ever had. And, yeah, like, now you've got Mecha Tankies. Well, guess what? The cringe and the mentally ill are going to call themselves Mecha Tankies now. You've done nothing. And it's rooted in this postmodern idea of, like, well, if we just change what we call things, that'll change reality itself. And no, it will not. Postmodernism doesn't work. Stand your ground. Make Dust James and Yankee Tanky think of a new name for themselves, because this is your name. Or at least that's how I see it. But honestly, my fundamental take on the whole patsoc thing is, if you don't want to call yourself a patsoc, then call yourself what I intended people to call themselves from the get when I coined the term. Call yourself a Marxist-Lincolnist. We'll get to what that's about. But not my only issue with Haas. My biggest issue is that Pol Pot wasn't based. He was an asset of American imperialism. So, and for that matter, Mao kind of sucked too. And this is not to say that modern China sucks. I uphold Z. Z is based. The People's Republic of China is based. But Mao sucked. And the fun, and like, I'm gonna criticize Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge here because it's kind of the same criticism. It's all tied into the same thing. Basically, after Khrushchev did his secret speech in '56 and divided the communist movement between, revisionists and anti-revisionists, Mao tried to destroy the Soviet Union. Khrushchev was cringe. Khrushchev was wrong. Khrushchev deserved to be opposed. Mao was not opposing him for the most honorable of reasons. He was basically just trying to be King Kami. And after Khrushchev stepped in it so obviously, it was really easy for Mao to do that. But Mao had his own ulterior motives. And, the fact that the PRC is based, even though it was founded by Mao, who mostly wasn't, is a demonstration of how, like, a worker state, an institution, another thing Haas hates, but, like, just because liberals, understand how institutions work doesn't mean that institutions are bad. There can be institutions that are socialist, like a worker state, and we want those, and we want more of those, because institutions automatically, like, if you have a good institution but it's run by an absolute idiot or a corrupt guy, the institution will be fine. Good results will still mostly happen. Like, the things directly touched by the person at top might not work out well. But, like, the Soviet Union was a workers' state, even under Khrushchev, even under Brezhnev, especially under Andropov. Too bad that guy died. But even under Gorbachev, at least until Gorbachev privatized the means. Gorbachev. Anyway, but like, after Gorbachev privatized the means, then you might have been able to make a case for, like, well, abandon the Soviet Union as a concept now. But like until then, it was still something worth fighting for. And just like Mao created this workers' state in China that was in this Communist Party of China, and those things were based. Even though Mao himself wasn't, he created good institutions. So just because I'm criticizing Mao doesn't mean that I'm criticizing China or the Communist Party of China. It just means that I have beef with the guy, with like a guy, And for the record, this is mostly the same beef that the CPC has with Mao. They call him 70% correct. I think that's too generous. I mean, let's go down with the list of why I don't love Mao. First off, he's in a rare league that only Australia is in. He declared war on birds and lost. But when Australia decided to go to war with the emus, Australians didn't die on massive famine. When Mao decided, nah, kill every sparrow you can find, many Chinese people did die of famine. Millions. Like, a shorthand I have to describe communist history to my conservative friends is this. Like, everything they told you about Stalin was wrong. Everything they told you about Mao is true. Because, I mean, like, millions of people really did die because Mao was utopian and he had at least petty bourgeois class interests that he didn't acknowledge or try to commit treason against. And I don't know, like, I don't think you get to... After the first... How about this? After the first million dead, you don't get to say oopsie anymore, alright? The Cultural Revolution was based... and is the reason China exists now. But, like, even there were excesses and Mao got things wrong. Like, but it's funny that, like, the Cultural Revolution the good thing it did was it took power away from the class that Mao himself was part of. And it gave it back to the peasants and the proletariat. And that's what saved China. That's why there is still a People's Republic of China. But declaring war on birds and the Great Leap Forward, which is also a stupid idea that killed millions of people that didn't need to die. And the Damansky Island incident, which was also part of his beef with Khrushchev, which, again, you're trying to destroy a workers' state just because you hate the leadership. And then his beef with Vietnam, which was started and ended with the fact that they were allied with the USSR because, when you're trying to overthrow French and then American imperialism, you can't be too choosy about your friends. Anyone giving you guns is fine. Like, just, you need the guns. Like, China didn't have the guns to give them when they were fighting early on, and then after the USSR did, even though it was Khrushchev giving them, like, that doesn't make Uncle Ho a revisionist. That just means Uncle Ho's getting armed by revisionists. And, like, whatever, but this is why China went to war with Vietnam. And this is why Henry Kissinger, the Grand Archon of the Ninth Circle of Hell, decided to pal around with Mao. He was like, all right, I really hate Vietnam, and I really hate the Soviet Union. You hate Vietnam and the Soviet Union. Let's be friends. And then he was like, all right, so we want to destroy those two worker states, and this is how. We're going to... Now, America has this whole, like, human rights concept that helps justify our imperialism, as Haas rightly pointed out. But, so, because of that, Kissinger was like, we Americans cannot directly arm the Khmer Rouge, but we can give you guys, like, trade and aid and so forth, and then if you guys arm the Khmer Rouge, that would be fine. And we'll just pretend we didn't see it. And I mean, we'll issue pro forma denunciations of whatever bad things the Khmer Rouge does, but fundamentally, anyone attacking the Vietnamese is fine with us. And as, like, it's not true that America did nothing to help the Khmer Rouge, though. We backed the Khmer Rouge-led government of Cambodia in claiming their UN seat when the Vietnamese-backed puppet socialist government of Cambodia that actually ruled the country at the time was trying to claim it. And we did it through high-minded liberal notions of blah-de-blah-de whatever. No one cares. But yeah, we did here and there in minor areas that few people would notice, did try to help the Khmer Rouge. Well-known Defense Department asset Noam Chomsky, thinks the Khmer Rouge is based. Like the meme says, never ask a man his salary, a woman her age, or Noam Chomsky's opinions on the Khmer Rouge. Anyway, but yeah, so all of my criticisms of Mao said, like, I still kind of uphold him, though, just simply because of this. The PRC is based, and what came before Mao was much worse. As bad as Mao was, as many millions of people as died under Mao, the colonialism suffered by the Chinese under the Qing dynasty, as the Western imperialists just savaged their country, it was far, far worse than anything Mao could have cooked up in his utopian, addled brain. The Boxer Rebellion, and that's not what they would call them. It should be called the Rebellion of the Society of Swift and Harmonious Fists, but, that got translated into English as Boxer, but it's not as cool. But yeah, anyway, so the Boxer Rebellion, that had like 100 million death count. 100 million. That's like more than a world war. In just one country. And that was like the Western imperialists getting together and beating down this Chinese peasant uprising demanding their national sovereignty back. There was the Taiping Rebellion, I think it was called, where like the leader was a guy who claimed to be the brother of Jesus Christ. Similar body count. And these are only within a couple of decades of each other, right? And that's just the body counts we're aware of. That's not counting all the people that starved to death or like smoked opium until they finally just died in a gutter or a den somewhere or something. Like, the slow death that accompanies capitalism in the third world. That was what Mao replaced, and it was a step forward. So I critically uphold Mao, but like I think a lot of people go too far with it, especially Dengists. And I got nothing really against Deng. His theory has been largely validated, but he did kind of continue Mao's policy of palling around with Henry Kissinger. And I say that particular phrase because, like, Sarah Palin was, like, talking about Obama palling around with terrorists. And I can't think of a bigger terrorist than Henry Kissinger, so that's how I'm always going to refer to that. But anyway, so, and then, like, as far as Jackson goes, Jackson Hinkle is a good Christian boy who did nothing wrong. He's being oppressed by the YouTube censors and the deep state, and we ought to uphold him. I got no beef with Jackson. He's doing God's work, and I don't even got any like real quibbles here and there. Like, yeah, whatever. Like, I mean, hell, he's even right about the libertarians and Ron Paul and ending the Fed. Like, yeah, no beef with Jackson. Jackson's on point. Nah, actually, I'm not convinced about the People's Party. I guess that'd be my beef. But it's like, I'm not convinced about CPUSA 2036 for, and this is really the same beef, but like, it's not beef really. It's just like, um, I have an idea of what I'd like to do instead, but um, the People's Party, Jimmy Dore, these are all good people. Like, it's by and large seems like former Democrats who got read up on theory to a certain extent. Not always like as much as I'd like to see, but you know, I would say that this is a universe of gettable people, and as far as the praxis goes, it's not terrible. I did my time in the Libertarian Party when I was a young dumb teenager, and I don't need to place have my faith broken by a third party ever again. Like, that's just, they are not going to achieve state power in these material conditions. But like, if Jimmy Dore is going to be running and like explaining to people that how imperialism is bad and stuff, like, I mean, an educational campaign isn't going to hurt anything. I certainly don't wish Jimmy Dore badly, and I do think he'd be a great president if elected. I just don't see the prospects for that on the horizon. At least not in the third party bid. He'd have to get one of the two main party lines, and I know he's never going to get the Democrats. But yeah, so now that I've dunked on patsocs, or the main patsocs out there, let me tell you what they get right. Let's start with Haas, because I just went in depth about Haas. Like, Haas is right about the Mongols. I would love to have a conversation with the good old Genghis Khan there about like how base the Mongols were, and like all the different things like about them. How like you can even trace like the institutional development of Marxism-Leninism itself back to Genghis Khan. I did a video. Well, I'll tell you about that later. But like, and Haas is like, he's not afraid to gore somebody's pet sacred cow. Like, he is right to point out that the Starbucks unionization efforts aren't going to they're not revolutionary. Like, there's nothing wrong with them, but like, it's not something that communists should be focusing our efforts on. He's right about that. He's right about there being a sort of monarchical nature of communist leadership. It's kind of explained in depth in the main foundational writings of Juche. I don't know how to pronounce that. But I like, you'll hear the shitlibs talk about like how North Korea is a monarchy. It's not, but the shitlibs are kind of a broken clock on this one, because there is a sort of relationship there. Like, what happens is the workers cannot individually break through the bureaucratic resistance of the bourgeoisie. But if they all empower one guy, he can. And that's what the Stalinist quote of personality, or quote, cult of personality is about. That's just the, anytime you see a communist cult of personality, that is an organic application of that principle in practice. I don't know what that's about. But yeah, like, and just in general, Haas is just like organically connected to the workers in a way that like a lot of people aren't, and that's so like, and that's why he is so willing to step out there and tell it like it is. I mean, is because he's more often, when he does that and gores our sacred cows, more often than not, he's right than wrong because he's in touch with the workers and he senses a deeper truth that the rest of us reading theory haven't. And even then, sometimes it, you know, uh, leads to the things I've talked about before. But in general, like, Haas's willingness to step out there is a good thing, and I think it's admirable. He's noted a lot of correct things about history, and that's based. And just, I don't agree with like every line he puts out there that's like socially conservative, but like I appreciate the effort of trying to reach out to social conservatives. I think they're a key part of our coalition, the coalition that we need to build that can take over America and redeem it and fulfill the promise of 1776. That said, I don't agree with social conservatives on quite a bit, even though I do agree with them on more than your average communist. So, like, I'm not gonna include those quibbles, like, because those are just quibbles, and I've kind of accepted them as, like, the price of anti-imperialism is you're gonna have to hear social conservatives out sometimes, and that's just that. I it's a price worth paying. My God. Um. So that's what I want to say. Haas gets right. What I want to say CPI gets right is building bridges across anti-imperialist orgs. That is a good thing that needs to happen. That is not happening near enough. They're right even to try to reach out to the Uhuru guys. I wish the Uhuru guys were willing to reach out to the Trump people, but you know, and I guess my criticisms of the CPI grow out of this basic instinct of theirs, which is a good instinct, to try to build these bridges. It's tolerance is a good thing and a noble thing, and but it can go too far, and it can lead you into tolerating things that shouldn't be tolerated. And yeah, so like tolerating dust, tolerating land back, but those that I'd say that's a bit too far. But like, just in general, trying to unite anti-imperialists, yes, that's a good thing. But something I will say about the broader patsoc community, though, is that we all kind of came at this to the conclusions we did from different directions. Haas came from philosophy. I came from history. Caleb came from journalism. And like years in the Workers' World Party. We all came to our conclusions from different places, but we all had to kind of struggle against prevailing communist synthetic leftist orthodoxy to do this, to get to where we are. And so we all had to kind of make our own minds. And so a lot of patsoc doesn't always fully agree with each other. And so therefore this tendency to try to like unite them anyway, it's a good one. And I guess like the only thing I'd say is that actual wreckers need to just be chucked out on their ear. Anyone that isn't wrecking should be more than welcome to like this space, to patriotic socialism more broadly, but like actual wrecking, and this includes psyops like land back, not just mentally ill people like Yankee Tanky. But yeah, those guys, tolerance can go too far, but the world would be a better place with more tolerance in general than we have now. But that's tolerance for everyone, not just like gay people or trans people, but also conservative people or Christians. Tolerate everyone. that's not doing harm. And then, but like, a lot of these people do harm. Like, say, I wouldn't want to tolerate polyamorous people. Um, the child abuse happens at higher rates in polyamorous homes. That actually is mentioned in James Waller's Becoming Evil as like a something that can lead to genocide. I'm not just talking out my butt here when I say that. There's other things that you don't necessarily want to tolerate, like furries. Like, everyone's got their own interests and stuff, like, but then there's just being weird for the sake of being weird, and like, or okay, I'll say this: furries in public. You want to have your little fursuit in the privacy of your own home with your furry friends, whatever. But I don't want to see that in public. I don't want to have to explain that to children. Like, why some people want to. We're just gonna leave that there. But yeah, like, there are just some things you can't tolerate. But anyway, so what do I've explained a lot of my differences with other people. Like, I'm defining why I want to do my own thing in relation to other people. I haven't really explained what I stand for. So let me do that now. Patriotic socialism, like I explained, was only ever a way to describe Marxism-Lincolnism to conservatives, and I'm a Marxist-Lincolnist. So what is that? What is Marxism-Lincolnism? It's a term I coined, another one. But like, I chose it because it describes exactly what I believe. Patriotic socialism, I didn't mean to become a term, but it did. But like, Marxism-Lincolnism is far more precise because it describes the two people that founded the Vanguard Party I believe can take over America. The GOP, when it was founded, the first president ever elected was Lincoln, first off. Not the first president ran, that was John C. Fremont. He was an explorer out west. No, Lincoln was the first president elected, but the guy who was like playing the role of Rush Limbaugh in the early GOP was Karl Marx. He was the main editorial writer for the New York Daily News, which was like the Fox News of its day. Not the New York Daily News. The New York Daily Tribune was the name of the paper. Marx wrote a lot of signed editorials for them. He also wrote a lot of unsigned editorials, which were unsigned because they were the opinion of the paper as a whole. The father of communism was also the father of the GOP, and he'd never even stepped foot in America. He briefly considered moving to Texas, but he never did. And then in his correspondence with Frederick Engels about the war, Marx consistently took a pro-union position and defended Lincoln, and even had to explain that Confederate propaganda was Confederate propaganda to Engels himself, who was usually very based, but in this case was probably just not following events in America as closely as Marx had been. But yeah, so anyway, Marxism-Lincolnism is just Marxism-Leninism as applied to the material conditions of American bourgeois democracy. So what's different about Marxism-Lincolnism compared to normal Marxism-Leninism? Well, first off, it's the context. Lenin lived in autocratic Russia. Well, he was exiled from autocratic Russia. He lived in Switzerland. But he was dealing with the material conditions of autocratic Russia. So that means that's where he came up with the party of new type, the professional revolutionaries that would foster the revolution. That would be a sort of red middle class, doing superstructure work. Though I don't know if the term superstructure was around yet when Lenin operated. Anyway, but they had this whole scheme where they would these professional revolutionaries would overthrow the Tsar and it ended up happening. It worked. But this was a country where the Tsar decided to, finally, after enough protests happened, he decided to allow democratic elections, and then he didn't like what happened as a result, and so he just canceled he just disbanded Parliament, or the Duma. And so democracy didn't exist in Tsarist Russia in any real form. So in that case, overthrowing the state was the obvious thing to do. But America is not a bourgeois autocracy. It's a bourgeois democracy, and that changes. It doesn't change the need for revolutionary violence to establish socialism. What it does change is the order in which this revolutionary violence happens. Because even though it's bourgeois democracy, it's still democracy, and the bourgeois nature of it is deliberately obscured by the bourgeois false consciousness. So the workers believe this bourgeois democratic state belongs to them, that they can control it, because once every 2 years they get a step in a booth and put a check mark next to an R or a D. So the workers will defend this state because of its democratic character. And so you cannot overthrow it, because you cannot, at least not if you're trying to empower the workers. If you're trying to disempower the workers, you could overthrow it. And that's what we're kind of counting on as Marxist-Lincolnists. But what I do also have to say, though, is you cannot reform it. We are not reformists. We do not think that we can just win an election that will allow us to pass reforms and suddenly bourgeois democracy will be socialist democracy. No. Violence will be made necessary. The bourgeoisie are not going away without a fight. We will elect, but we do need to get elected first. We don't need to pass anything, but we need to get elected on one platform plank. Because, okay, if you do it like Jeremy Corbyn, you'd run on a million different things, whereas your opponent, it might be a complete idiot like Boris Johnson, but he's running on one thing: get Brexit done. The voters can understand get Brexit done. They can't understand, well, let's have an energy cap, and let's also maybe think about nationalizing some industries, and let's do this and let's do that, and how do I feel about Palestine? Is that really anti-Semitic? Let's have a big fight in the Guardian about it because they're bourgeois. You need simplicity is the ally of socialists in any kind of an election campaign that they hope to win, or so you run on one platform plank that, if enacted, would impoverish the bourgeoisie. And Lincoln did this on accident. His platform plank was restrict slavery from the territories, but the slave plantation system depleted the soil of every place it was rooted in, so it had to keep going west. South Carolina wasn't even making money off of cotton directly anymore. They were making money off of the export of slaves to other states, where the soil hadn't been depleted and you could still grow cotton. They were running up against a brick wall yet that they didn't realize, in so far as you can't really grow cotton on the Great Plains without modern machinery and modern well digging techniques that they hadn't invented yet. But and that argument is made by a guy named James Prescott Webb. He's a historian of the Great Plains. But that aside, they didn't understand that at the time, and they were like, well, if you can't expand slavery, if slavery can't expand, it will die. This is why the Confederacy, the Confederate elites, had a plan, if they had won, that they were going to create something called the Golden Circle, which basically would have been this Confederate empire taking over Latin America and maybe the Philippines and stuff. And this whole Golden Circle idea came true after the CIA came about. A lot of the people in the FDR administration were neo-Confederates, and FDR didn't live to see the establishment of the CIA. It was only the OSS under him, but like his utopianism set the stage for it. But anyway, I digress. Where were we? So yeah, like you have to get elected on a single platform plank unimplementable by capitalism. In Lincoln's time, that was, restricting slavery from the territories. In our time, that would be ending the empire, and ending American imperialism, ending the deep state. And then once you get elected to implement that, and since you only ran on the one thing, you didn't like muddle up your message with like a whole bunch of different things. They cannot deny your democratic legitimacy to implement that one thing. So the bourgeoisie at that point have no other option but to counter-revolute. I don't think it'd play out exactly the same way as it did in the 1860s. In the 1860s, like I think because secession is formally illegal and that's settled case law, what's going to happen is they're going to dispute the validity of there's going to be like a blue stop the steal is what I think is going to happen. And that is going to be the nature of the bourgeois counter-revolution. They're going to call themselves the United States. They're going to act like they're the legitimate United States government. They're not. And they're not going to be. The Republicans will win an election where they ran on ending imperialism, and Trump might act. It might even be the next election because Trump is talking about abolishing the CIA or at least firing most of them if he gets elected. And is not just talking about it, but his people are actively planning for it. So that might be the demand. That might be the Marxist-Lincolnist demand, and we might not even have to like take over the GOP formally to see this happen. But yeah, anyway, so after a bourgeois counter-revolution against their own bourgeois democracy that slipped out of their hands, then we can beat them. The Confederacy lost, and it lost against communists serving in Union uniforms, as well as like conservatives serving in Union uniforms. Like this, an alliance of communists and conservatives, because we're both rooted in the working class, can beat liberals and fascists, and most every single world war or global revolutionary era, that's what you see happen. The liberals and the fascists are on one side, the conservatives and the communists are on another side, and then you've got the nationalists and the people that get called Nazbols, but then them and the like lumpens and the social democrats, three different positions. They're always the ones up for grabs, but it's always a liberal fascist axis and a conservative communist alliance fighting for their loyalties. Anyway, so that's the core of the Marxist-Lincolnist idea, is that in a bourgeois democracy, you have to get elected on a platform plank that will force a bourgeois counter-revolution if you win the election. And then you win the Civil War, like Lincoln did. So what's different about Marxism-Lincolnism compared to like other forms of patriotic socialism? Okay, well, CPUSA 2036, which is like the infrared thing, it's a good idea, but they got the wrong party. Like, I don't think the Communist Party USA is America's vanguard party. I think that's the Republican Party. The concept of the vanguard was first formulated by Vladimir Lenin, who was not, I don't know if he was even born yet in the 1860s. If he was like a toddler. But Lenin coined the term, but a vanguard party, it can lose its way. And the Republican Party, though it was founded by communists, let's be specific about what communists and where. Most of these communists in the Republican Party were immigrants from Germany and other monarchies in Europe that survived 1848 and then started oppressing the leftists in their countries. And so those leftists, usually communists, but also anarchists and just socialists, they moved to America. And the very name Republican for this party came about because it was a way to nod at and wink at these communists who had just been trying to overthrow monarchies, as well as a nod back to Jefferson's Democrat Republicans that eventually evolved into just being the Democratic Party. But yeah, like vanguards can lose their way, and what happened, how the GOP lost its way, especially, was after World War One. There was this Red Scare, and because remember, our enemies in that war had been the Germans, the German Kaiser, who was very conservative, but also communists were on the side of the Entente. I mean, Lenin was a revolutionary defeatist who signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which helped end one of Germany's two fronts of in World War One. So, but yeah, so there was this anti-German hysteria during World War One, and because a lot of Germans were communists, it kind of blended into this broader anti-German, anti-communist hysteria that culminated in the first Red Scare. And that's when scumbags like J. Edgar Hoover and Harry Anslinger really kind of started coming to the fore. The CIA wasn't a twinkle in FDR's eye yet, or Harry Truman's eye yet. The FBI had just gotten its start as an anti-prostitution organization, and then they quickly degenerated into beating communists in the streets. But yeah, like the KPRF, the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, they're the vanguard party of Russia. Even though Khrushchev lived and ruled, even though Brezhnev did his thing, even though Gorbachev pissed all over its institutional legacy and destroyed the Soviet Union, the KPRF is still the vanguard. And just because the Republican Party lost its way, this is still the party that ended slavery and changed the means of production, and changed the workers' relationship with the means of production upon the North American continent once before. And it's still our vanguard party. Like, infiltrating the vanguard to reclaim it for communism is a based and good idea, but I hope the CPUSA 2036 idea succeeds, but the CPUSA isn't America's vanguard. That is the Republican Party, and what I see as a best case scenario for CPUSA 2036 is that it takes over the CPUSA, and then the silverbacks, so to speak, Haas's people, they're in control of the CPUSA, and then they help the radical Republicans take over the GOP. They become part of a sort of inter-party communist caucus or something that all works together in a coalition against the Democrats. I mean, it would be good to settle for all time that communism doesn't mean land back. And there's no better way to do it than for anti-land back forces to take over the CPUSA. But again, we've only got so many resources as communists. We can't be supporting every Starbucks unionization effort that comes up. I just fundamentally, I wish them well, but I'm not going to be doing a whole lot myself to take over the Communist Party. I've got bigger fish to fry, I think. What else? America's material conditions mean that, we've got ballot access laws in this country. America is not like any other Western democracy. Our two big parties have really locked down the ballot lines in a way that other first-past-the-post democracies haven't. Britain's got 2.5 parties, maybe 3. like Britain's got like 2 big parties, but like 3 3 third parties. Like they've got like the Greens, the Lib Dems, and the Scottish Nationalists, and I guess Plaid Cymru if you count them. But like Wales isn't big enough for Plaid Cymru to have like the sway that the SNP does. But I digress. And then Canada's got like 2 third parties that have like success on a regular basis, the NDP and the Bloc Québécois. But and they've got like third parties that matter in Australia and New Zealand, but just they don't here because in America we've got ballot access laws. So you can talk about like communists should be in their own party and whatnot. Like you can quote Marx at me, but Marx wasn't reckoning with ballot access laws, and in these material conditions, you have to have a ballot access. Libertarians, they blow most of the money they raise on securing 50-state ballot access, and they don't always get Oklahoma, which has the hardest ballot access laws. And they do all this, and they don't have any money for the campaign. They get like 1% if they're lucky. Same with the Greens, except they're not even as successful as libertarians. Ballot access means that if you want to assume state power in America, you have to be either a Democrat or a Republican. And we're just not taking over the Democratic Party. That isn't happening. The only people, even with the remote prospect of that, are imperialists like AOC or Bernie. So that's just not. And I mean, and even those guys, you can see how badly they're getting screwed by their own party establishment. The only reason Bernie or AOC will ever be allowed to win a Democratic primary is if they're running against a radical Republican who might actually change things, in which case the bourgeoisie will be like, well, Bernie in this race is the lesser evil, we'll get behind him. He might actually be able to keep the radical Republicans out. That's... Other than that, they're going to just keep rigging their primaries to keep them out. Let's see. So that's how Marxism-Lincolnism is different from like the infrared effort, CPUSA 2036, and then how we're different from like this. How it's different from the CPI's theory is that CPI's got these 4 demands that are good, solid demands for a communist to make that, if implemented, would make for a much better country than the one we currently have. The trouble is that they're communist demands that communists can agree to, but conservatives and libertarians can't. So we should, but those people are gettable to ending imperialism. So if we restrict our demands to ending imperialism, we can get them. Firing the CIA, defunding the FBI, these are demands that, and pulling our troops out from all over the world, these are demands that unite us all. And if this is the thing we run on, this is the thing we will win on. Whereas and you need those conservatives and libertarians. You can despise what they believe in, but you still need their votes. And this is... the CPI's efforts, while well-intentioned, I don't think are going to be able to secure those votes. Let's see. So anyway, that's my ideology. That's what it stands for. That's what it's about. Now, what do I have to offer? Why should you be caring about the second episode I make of this? Well, I'm a historian. I went to college for history. I went to grad school for history. I did all the coursework. I just didn't finish the thesis. You try working a full-time job as a teacher, no less, while writing a thesis. And a thesis is basically just a book, and like a third of it's footnotes. And I got halfway through that, and I was like, I can't do this. And that's how they keep the riffraff from getting grad degrees, so it remains the class marker they intend it to be. But all the same, I did go to college for it. I've got an associate's in general studies, a bachelor's in history with a minor in geography. I've got, yeah, most of my coursework, and for as far as it goes, I was paid to go to grad school. I was a GA. They hired me to be the GA for the history department as I went. I was like, even as an undergrad, I was teaching history courses. Like, the dean of the college that I got my bachelor's from, when he heard that I was wanting to come back to be a GA, he was like, yes, yes. Like, I aced that interview. They were so eager to have me on because they remembered me from back in the day. And so yeah, I know my historical stuff, and that allows me to do class analysis that other YouTubers can't. Like my criticism of Pol Pot. Like, I don't think Haas is a bad guy or anything. I just don't think he knows all of the history, and that's fine. That's a common thing that happens. Like, most people do not have my life experience, so it's a perspective I can offer. And in fact, my very first stab at trying to do a channel on YouTube was based in this. I've got a channel I'll link in the comments called Standing Athwart History, Yelling Go. It's got one episode because those episodes are real hard to make, and I'm still not satisfied with the production values of it. But again, you doing what you can with what you got. But and it's just, that episode is just me talking about my thesis. But the thing with Standing Athwart, okay, so this for the I get the phrase from, there was a conservative that explained his ideology as like standing athwart history, yelling stop. Well, as a communist, I don't want history to stop. I want it to go forward. I want it to progress. So yeah, standing athwart history, yelling go. But also, that channel, if I revive it, it's meant to be a normie channel. I do normie projects under my real name, and my commie stuff under Kent Chamberlain. And so, oh, and here's my kitty. Oh, this is my girl, Sakaki. She's about 10 years old, and she decided she needed to be on my lap. So yeah, here she is. Anyway, you can deal with her cuteness as I talk. So where were we? Yeah, standing athwart history, yelling go. Anyway, so like I've got that, and I've got like an artistic project called the 503. It's a webcomic, and I do these things under my real name, and I try not to get too communist with it, because liberals have money, and if they like the stuff you do, they will give it to you, and so I try not to offend them in things that are intentionally meant to get their Patreon donations. And that's that. So anyway, I will link stuff to that channel as necessary, as I find it necessary, but like it's for my normie content. This is going to be where the communist stuff goes. Let's see. As I've explained, I've got a comprehensive and realistic plan to establish socialism in the United States of America before we're all dead. These land backroots getting up in their dungeons about, morality of what happened to the native peoples, and I'm fucking native, all right? Like I'm like part Shawnee, part Potawatomi, part Haudenosaunee, and I got no patience for these people. They don't speak for me. They steal my voice and the voice of people like me to preach imperialism on a functional level. And they don't have any plan to establish socialism here, because that's not their goal. Their goal is to be socialister than the other socialists. It's just like a more advanced version of liberalism, really. So what else do I bring to the table? I'm a theorist, I'm a writer, I'm an artist, a cartographer. I wrote a nonfiction, or no, I wrote a fiction book set in hell under my real name. It's called The Second Death. Uh, but like I mentioned that only to say that like I'm actually a writer, and so when I write nonfiction like Class Analysis and Revolution, my magnum opus of theory. I think I did a good job keeping it entertaining. A lot of times when you try to read theory, it's very dry and boring and jargonistic, and I think I did a good job avoiding that. I want average people, not professors, to read my book. Professors too, why not? But like, it belongs to the working man. I want the working man to be able to read and understand it, and my writing skills help make that possible. And oh yeah, and I'm gonna link the book on if I either on screen or I'm gonna put one in the comments. But yeah, it's a free download. I made sure of that. You can give me some money, PayPal me if you think I've earned it when you're done. But the book is free. Let's see, and what else do I have to offer? Actual labor, and an attempt to build a dual power through my collective. I am sitting in a house I built with my bare hands out of pallet wood and spare materials. This is in the ghost town of Tobar, Nevada. The friendliest ghost town ever. I think I'm a friendly dude. But like, Tobar is I'm trying to establish a collective here, a socialist collective, and it's going to start with like where all wealth creation starts, with the land, with agriculture. Plants create value out of nothing, and that's amazing. And so I've spent the past couple of years just setting up my house, my wonderful house. It's still not done, but I can sleep in it now, and I can live in it and write theory in it, and I can like have a backdrop in it and like do videos in it now, and it's a wonderful place. There's a creek I'm building out back. There's a greenhouse I'm building out back. All kinds of stuff, but like, and I'm the only one here. I've got people associated with it in other states that are thinking about joining or contribute how and when they can, and they're wonderful people, and I thank God for every one of them. But like, I'm also ready for new people to move in. So, like, I guess part of the reason I decided to launch this channel, or was thinking about launching this channel, is kind of as advertisement for this collective I'm setting up. It's not just meant, okay, it's like a lot of patsocs will look down on, like, oh, socialism is when you, worker co-op, or, I'm not about that energy. I deliberately chose to call it a collective, not a co-op or a commune, because I don't want that hippie energy in this. I don't want that synthetic leftist energy in this. I want the energy of like the Russian proletariat eagerly and actively like collectivizing the lands before the land before Stalin can even get around to ordering it. Like I want that Magnitogorsk spirit where you're trying to build something out of nothing in the wilderness, and doing it before the Nazis can grind your country to dust. Like, I'm trying to build a dual power here, but I'm starting with nothing. The books that my history professors left me when they retired or died, I sold the duplicate copies and the stuff I didn't need anymore to pay for all of this. And I do not have a lot of resources. I'm not a man of means, so this is where I was able to start. If I had more money, I might have started somewhere else. Maybe I would have started Twitch streaming, and maybe that would have been the place I started. But this is the money I had. This is what I had to work with, and you have to survive before anything. And this let me first off survive, and then in the most efficient possible manner help others. we're getting to the help others part. But yes, if you want to build socialism as your day job, or if you lost your job and you need one, or you don't have housing and you need it, that's what the Tobar Collective is here for. I'm looking for a fellow cadre, especially, but anyone really that wants to build socialism with me, and you can do that out here. Let's see. So if you're interested in that, hit me up. Email me, message me, whatever. Drop a link in the comments. I'll get in touch with you. And if you want to contribute financially, I'm going to drop a link either on the screen or in the comments or both to my Patreon. And the Patreon has my real name. I might set up a Patreon especially for this channel, but like the Patreon I'm linking is just for my art stuff that I do, the webcomic and other art projects I do. But it'll work. It all goes the same bank account. So you throw money in that and it'll make its way out here and help build socialism here in Nevada. Let's see, what else is there to say before I wrap up this stream up. I just heard my tablet whine at me, so I think I've only got like 15% energy left, so you better wrap this up. But I was planning to anyway. We're going to do stream, or we're not going to stream specifically. We're going to do videos like this because I don't have internet in my house. I'm recording this, and then like it's currently August 26th. Yeah, Friday, August 26th, 2022, as I'm saying this and recording this. You will not view it today. You will view it next time I go to town, which should be a week from now, because I think I got enough water to last until next Friday, and I really try to stay out here as long as I can, whenever I can. So that's the agenda. So I can't stream. One day, when I get internet out here, I will have the ability to stream, but I probably still won't then, because like I'm just not a huge fan of the format. I respect you, my viewer. I respect the time you're giving to me, and I've already spent like an hour and a half of it just running down the basics of what I want this channel to be. But all of it's been spent talking about things that matter. I don't want to waste your time like picking my nose for 5 minutes. I don't want to waste your time going and taking a piss because I gotta take a piss. And that is a demonstration of what happens when you aren't streaming. Because my computer, or my tablet, was just like, nah, I got too much data in me. This recording's done. And I just, kept on trucking. I uploaded the video to my laptop, got the tablet recording again, and here we are. Alright. So anyway, I'm not going to stream. But I'm also not going to have people call in and debate me. This is some of the best and most compelling YouTube out there, like when Haas destroyed Rainer Shea in a debate. But it's also some of the least compelling. Like, most of the debates Haas has, for example, is just like, these garden variety land back ruse or synthetic leftists of some kind that, they think they're going to be able to totally own him because they saw a meme that makes fun of him once, and, like pointing out some supposed absurdity that he just like wrecks them on in 2 seconds, I don't know. Like, I feel like I could be spending my time better teaching good faith comrades a theory than trying to engage with bad faith actors on the internet. So and also I'm just like, debate is its own skill set that is related to but separate from being correct about something, if that makes sense. Like, if you can win a debate and be wrong about something. If this was not true, Ben Shapiro would be homeless, right? Because he's a very good debater, but he is wrong about so many things. Not all of them. He's right about more than you would think, but he's still his dub to L ratio is not that great. Except that it's greater than it should be because he's a good debater. I'm not a good debater. I am not an idiot though, but I just like the ability to think on your feet and just utterly, like just wreck someone with an instant response. I've gotten better at it over the years, but like I'm a better debater in writing than I am on video, like in real time. But like, I mean, like, sign me up for one of those like 19th century debates between like, say, who is that anti-Semitic guy that Marx hated? Not Proudhon. The other one. Bakunin. Yeah, like the debates between, sign me up for some debate like between Marx and Bakunin. I mean, like, and that's basically what a lot of the debates on Left Book have been. And I started screenshotting some of those because I feel like if I was going to put in all the effort to debate these people that were not acting in good faith, that like I should be able to get something out of it. So maybe like some screenshots that I can just throw at the next one, so I don't even have to like waste my time with any more bad faith. But like, so anyway, maybe I'll do debates, but it'll probably be on me calling into someone else's show or something if it's going to be anything like that, and I just don't see that a lot in my future. I would be a lot more inclined to have discussions with people of good faith in any case. Like, I just don't have a lot of the good Lord above gives us one life to live, and I don't want to spend it on people with bad faith. I just don't. Anyway, and I'm not going to do super chats as such because this is not streaming. But the super chat principle will still be operative. I think what will happen is, because see, I don't have it set up, but I should probably get a separate Patreon set up. Like I'm trying to wall off my normie and commie activities. Yeah, like a commie Patreon, like for this, and like people who join that at any level, because I mean, like, even if it's just like $1 a month, I think they actually don't let you join for less than $5. It's, I don't know, like, I'll have to check. I'll look into it. But I'll provide the correct Patreon link, whichever I choose, down below in the comments. But anyhow, yeah, anyone who I think is a Patreon subscriber at any level of donations per month will have the right to send me like questions every month, and I will try to stay on top of that. And like when I was thinking about possibly doing something like this, the thing that I was like, well, that might work. That might be a thing I could do. Was when I was thinking like what I had to offer, and it was like, yeah, I actually know enough about history that it would probably, I could see someone getting their $5 worth asking me like some specialist question about like the Mongol Empire or like ancient Rome or something. Especially in a field like I'm well studied in. I feel like you could be possibly in for learning things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to read in an encyclopedia. Not that people do that anymore, but yeah, like I do know a surprising amount of stuff, especially about history, but about all kinds of things. So I feel like, yeah, that's probably. I think I am confident enough in what I know that, yeah, like I don't think I'm going to rip people off by like answering a question for $5 a month. I think that's a fair trade. Anyway, I'm not. Last thing I got to say about all this is I'm not entirely for sure about the exact format for this show, but this is a tentative guess about something a format to follow. Like, I think I'll start with the news, and then I'll probably have like a monologue prepared about something or other, a different topic every time, where I'll like go deeper into it than just like offering my opinion on the news. Um, and then like if the last part of the show will just be answering questions from the Patreon subscribers. Uh, it's not the most innovative format, but I think it'll do a trick, especially if there's. It'll all depend on how many Patreon subscribers I get. I might just kick it off by like taking the odd question I get on Facebook or something. But yeah. Anyway, that and like maybe if I don't get questions, I'll talk about or that week or whatever. Like I'll talk about the collective, or give you a tour or something. I don't know. I'll always try to make sure it's interesting, and I'll try to make every episode about something. Like not just like this is episode number like 572, or it's gonna be like, well, this is the episode where we're gonna talk about why the Inca Empire fell or whatever. Like it's gonna be about something. But yeah, like that's the gist of it. Thank you for spending an hour and 40 minutes thereabouts with me. And I don't know how long or how frequent the episodes are going to come out. It's going to be kind of like whenever I get around to it. I'm surprisingly busy for being alone in the desert. But yeah, this has been Hot Take Express, and I've been your host, Kent Chamberlain, and I'll see you next time. No, that doesn't work. I need like some kind of a cool, snappy thing, like fuck Donald Rumsfeld? Nah, he's dead. I'll get canceled for that. I don't know. I don't know a whole bunch of Mao quotes, and I just kind of dunked on him. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna be the cool thing to end my videos, but we'll work that out later. Peace.